All right, we have an excellent panel with us today. When I was looking at their profiles, I noted that actually, coincidentally or not, or maybe it's a sign of the industry that we're in, every single one of them is taking their business through a massive reinvention. Roman is redefining what is a super app with media inside. Eli is presiding over a merger of an audio and a video a streaming service and trying to figure out what that means in terms of advantage. We have Muhammad, who's reinventing what a public service broadcaster is and what sort of service and how does it generate revenue as well and what is its role. And we have Basil, who is basically the story of the shift from traditional to digital in our region and continues to be so. So every single one of them is really going through the reinvention that this industry is mandating. But what I wanted to start with, and we'll just take it in the order that they're seated, Roman, with you, what drove this rethinking? What drove looking at things in a new way for you?
Well, thank you so much, Karim, and thank you everyone for having us today. So for Youngaplay, I think when we launched last year, and we launched our super app in the Middle East region, for us, we are young, let's say disruptors, but with the approach towards doing things that maybe someone will find relevant, especially the younger audience who engaged with the new tech, with the new apps so much, and we tend to try to bring the tech that we are the most strongest for to the region, but with the content obviously that is super relevant. And I think for us this combination of being the most advanced in the tech, but being super local, because we're here in the region, this is the only region for us. So we want to bring this cool new stuff and hope that audience will enjoy it.
Okay, thank you, Eli. So for Roman, it was sort of the merger of tech and audience content preferences. What about you?
Yeah, thank you, Karim. So, I will write on top of stuff that also Roman said, so not to repeat everything. Obviously, we're a tech company. Anghami was born as a tech company, and the first product it created was a music product, music service, the first in the region before all international and foreign players. It was extremely hard to build that product, but very rewarding to grow the audience and to grow subscribers and understand that we do have a place to play over here. When 6 months ago we completed the merger with OSN Plus, it sounds far, but it's just 6 months ago, and we recreated the entire platform. We created OSN Plus on top of Anghami as a tech platform. So there's a lot of correlation with what Roman just mentioned. But for us, it was understanding what every platform is. Anghami has a wealth of data on users in the region, has a wealth of data on behavior of users, also on advertisers, because we do work across all of that. And taking OSN Plus previous approach and re-engineering everything for 2024, what does the customer want? Does the customer want everything all in one, or should we actually complement services for the customer in a way that would be better for him, not better for us? Was part of the reinvention of the new platform, and we're still very early days. It's just 6 months. There's a lot more that we're planning based on the learnings. At the end of the day, for us, we always put the customer first. We always build for the customer, knowing the breadth of content that OSN Plus have in terms of international exclusivities and the breadth of content and user base of Anghami. We know that it makes sense for us, but also for the customer.
All right. Muhammad, so putting the customer first, clearly your public service, so that should be top of mind.
Thank you very much for having this opportunity. We are equally driven by the change in consumer behaviors. We have to follow the consumer, and in line of the drop in the classical advertising revenue, we had to undertake certain measures to cope with this shift. Firstly, we changed the whole organization to be digital-centric leadership and the way that we think. And the other parameter that has been equally important for us to shift from a classical public broadcaster, we reviewed where we are in the ecosystem and the value chain. So we undertook new initiatives that not necessarily we depend on one stream of revenue. For example, we launched an independent studio called Dubai Studios. We hope with that initiative to boost content, create IP, leave an impact into the ecosystem, and probably most importantly, build partnership beyond what the standard partnership we have. Another example, we launched something called Dubai Events. As you're aware, we broadcast and through linear and streaming many live TV shows. Now, what we have done, we have moved these shows from TV live into bringing it to live environment, like you'll see in the DSF, if some of you are hoping will be here around, you will see like the X Factor, not only a TV format, it's an activation format on the ground. And that's expand your presence and additional avenues for additional revenue.
All right, Basil, so clearly finding additional revenue streams is something that a company that was deeply steeped in traditional print definitely was thinking about, but tell us more.
No, absolutely. So what I wanted to say is that the owners of legacy media were the owners of the means of distribution. With the decentralization of distribution, that required an extreme change into the way that we function and we work, because content now is what is the main focus. You're now competing in attention with everyone that has an account on social media. So that really transforms everything that the whole process of creating that content, from the technology used, to the systems used, to the talent that you have, to the processes, to the policies, everything is completely changed. I would dare to say it's a different industry than it was, just 10 years ago. That affected the advertising revenue, that affected the subscription model. All these things are interconnected. So at SRMG, what we'd like to say is that the constant thing is change, and we're always able to adapt to that change. And what has happened over the past 5 years is that we have looked at the new model, and we have adapted to the new model. And what we've been doing is simply laying down the foundations. The next 5 years is even going to be greater, because now the foundations are there.
You all mentioned the transformation that you're going through in one way or another, trying to discover. If you could just give me a number, how many years do you think you need to know if you did the right thing? Let's go back.
We already know that we did the right thing. Honestly, we see it in the numbers. The growth that we've seen, both in terms of revenue and in terms of reach, engagement.
Profitability?
Profitability, yes. Not only that, but in terms of unearthing the value that a legacy company does have, which was buried, archive. This was sat there buried in our archives, and all of a sudden now it's valued at tens of millions of dollars if you use generative AI in the proper way. So we're unearthing all that, the treasure trove that we have.
Your number is 0 because you already know. Hamad's number?
I think I can explain it from a different angle. We are competing today against international giants. No more it's about a local competition. So what is important in that equation, I think it's a very imbalanced relationship. Today we produce content domestically for consumers that consume our domestic content along with the international content. Now, these international companies, they have to be mindful that they need local players, because local players first thrive on Arabic content, local content. Number two, they do have a sporting content that is very important for viewers in this region. And most importantly, they have the bundling capabilities with local telecom operators in the region. They have deep understanding of the local community. So that balance has to be created. That value has to be demonstrated, because the shift from the classical advertising revenue to an SVOD platform or consumer funded, regardless of the way, will not offset the overall cost of the business. So we are now in the middle of that challenge as we progress. Now, our role comes, we can't drop the ball. We have to build the creativity, and the partnership is the trick to navigate through this time.
5 years, 10 years? How long?
We were hoping in five years, yes.
Okay.
I generally think in the past, few months, 6 months, we've already changed a lot by the merger of the company, by shifting the bottom line to be extremely cheaper than before. And I think from the top line, we're growing quite healthily. I would like to be very confident that within 2 years, our method, our way, our strategy that we're going through right now should provide results. Otherwise, we should be able to adapt and iterate within those 2 years. I've learned a lot on Anghami, I've learned a lot on, building things and waiting bit by bit, but now we're on a very tougher timeline and very strict timeline, and we really know what we're doing because of the lessons of the past. So I have to be very mindful that I think we should make it in that timeline.
Roman?
Yeah, well, I think for the past couple of years, we've been good at transforming the way how we operate as well, because we're super fast, and everything is becoming quicker, and with everything, the whole life becomes much quicker. And if you're not even just slow, if you're not more faster than the life around you, you would fail. So for us, the way how we operate and how quick we are at testing, learning, adapting, listening to the data, and we do, I can relate so much to what Eddie said about actually relying not on just some hypotheses, but just doing them, testing them, and this allows us to proceed and to actually, do something that consumer will actually enjoy, not just by guessing, but just doing and learning out of it. And second, I think we're kind of trying to transform the perception of subscription business and actually paying for the subscription that, with the obviously huge share of content available for free all over the internet, sometimes for the consumer it's challenging to even think of paying extra for the access to something.
When will you know?
Huh?
When will you know if they're going to change?
Well, at least, as what I've witnessed, it's we're 4 or 5 years, before the moment where, the spike will happen. Because the consumers are super conscious of, understanding that you're paying for the future entertainment, So in some way you can say that subscription is just collective funding of the future movies and series and so great content that will entertain everyone.
Okay, so short timelines, relatively speaking, for all of you. Audience, this is where you get off your smartphones and participate. So what we're going to do next, we're going to have a series of statements. I need you to first tell me if you agree with them, with a show of hands, and then we're going to ask a couple of panelists on each one. So, first statement, you can make money in media through advertising alone. How many of you think yes? Raise your hand. Whoa, that's devastating. Profitability. You can be profitable on advertising alone in media. Okay, how many against, just to make sure you're all listening? Okay. Yeah, actually, that's good. The panel should also raise their hands. That's good. All right. So actually, Muhammad and Ali, I think since you raised the against, and Muhammad is just also is relying a lot on advertising, but just launched a whole new. So let's hear from both of you.
I have a confusing perspective.
Go ahead.
You bear with me. The classical advertising again will not be enough to fund the business. Now, you have to add a subscription-based consumer. The problem when you add a consumer into this equation, then you will engage into something called consumer psychology. Consumer will only pay you if you are offering premium content or live events. Now, the trick for us, we don't want to lose that advertising revenue nor the subscription revenue. So I think the controversial component, which I think I want to say, there will be a day when the consumer will end up paying for the ad placed in the content. In other words, we have to go into content creation with creative ad placements, so the consumer will find it as a bundled without him noticing that this is a paid ad. So you generate money from both. So that's how it might work.
Ali?
I don't find it controversial, actually, at all, what he just said. I'll applaud that. I do believe, we've been in music, in a freemium model whereby we make money on subscription and advertisement. We also launch an event business to actually make money with the artist on all of the events for the artist, and a production company to make money with the artist music that we create and produce, and an ad company to partner with artists to create advertisement for brands. So at the end of the day, we realize that we're making money from the ecosystem, not just from the core business. And when I put that also on SN Plus into the video space, we launched a few months ago, still low, under the table, whatever you want to call it, an advertising plan. So basically, you could subscribe to SN Plus, but also get ads. Because the idea is, yes, we need to be mindful of the price for the consumer, but there is room for advertisers to be engaged. Now, obviously, the current advertisements are kind of mirroring what happens on the TV, but the next set of advertisement will be just plugging it via Gen AI within the actual TV shows. And that is something that is possible to be done. It's not going to happen next year, but that is probably the future of how content will be consumed. And that makes
Okay.
perfect sense.
So the answer is both, but in different forms than today.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, audience. First of all, how many people know what fast channels are? I expect a lot of you. Okay, very good. So, fast channels are irrelevant in the region. Yes? No? And the rest of you who don't raise your hand, what are you doing? Come on. Participation KPIs are low so far. Okay, next question, do better. Type. On this one, I had Roman.
Yeah, well, I think, fast channel at some point it became just the buzzword that describes like certain concept, but it is differs from like depending on like where you discuss. So for me, honestly, that like putting, let's say, on-demand content in a linear type of consumption sometimes solves just the issue of going into endless scrolling of the catalog on video-on-demand platforms. Whereas, with so much choice, you just end up, distracted, and you just find this IP that or actor or something that just captures you, and you don't care like what would be the
It's
episode.
like wallpaper TV.
Yeah, I mean, in some way, you can see how video-on-demand goes back to how linear type of media works.
Okay.
So it's just the way to consume the content through linear, which is fast.
I think it's like music. Some people like to pick the artist that they want, the song that they want, and some people like to pick playlists that curators worked for them, so they don't have to think. And when it comes to video, honestly, for the young generation that knows video on demand, that want to pick whatever they want, they don't understand what is a fast channel. They don't understand why you have a channel that's running all the time and then can access in the middle of it, because they're not used to the whole concept of linear. For the people transitioning between transitioning from linear to SVOD, fast channel might be a way to get people to lean in. But generally, I don't think we're at this point in time in the region that can wait. We can create fast channel easily, algorithmically. It's a tech thing whereby we take the content that we have and we just literally create it in a way that makes sense, comedy, drama, and whatever. Is it needed today in the region to reach the users? I don't think it's that important at all.
Are any of you relying on fast as a major source of revenue in the next couple of years? No.
Next couple of years, no.
Okay.
I don't see it as a major source of revenue, no.
Okay, that tells us a lot. All right, and this time we need 100% participation, audience, or I'm going to start getting upset. Global streamers will be the dominant source of subscriptions in MENA in 5 years' time. Yes. No. I have no opinion. No, even the ones who don't raise their hand, they don't have raise it on I have no opinion either. Okay. Panel, I should have asked the panel to raise your hands. Show me a show of hands as well so I know who to pick on. Ili, are you going to be a minority player or a leading player in subscriptions in 5 years' time in MENA?
Yeah.
Why will you win?
We're not here to lose. I mean, we're here because we believe we have room and we have a market to benefit from and to grow. What Muhammad earlier mentioned in terms of the connection of the locals to the region, in terms of, for us, let's say when we started creating a network with the telcos was massively an advantage to actually get people to pay when they wouldn't want to trust paying by credit card or all of that. That is a massive thing that still to that date allows us to create partnership with telcos, but with other local partners that are excessively important for us in terms of growth. That's something that international big companies don't exactly focus on because they need a lot of foot on the ground. So we believe that we're always going to have an advantage. But the second and most important advantage is on what we call localization. Localization is not just writing right to left, it's actually creating for the people in the region. And this is something that OSN Plus has been late to do because for different reasons. Right now, we're actually focused on creating our own originals. We're launching the first original called the Fashionista in February. So we believe we have room to actually understand what the people want based on the slew of data that we have on music and video on what people want and create for them. Because we're totally focused on the region, Anghami is the only big whatever music player that has created content. Others have simply gotten content and distributed. We've created a lot of content because we are participating in the ecosystem and we want the ecosystem to grow. So that's why I do believe we have a massive advantage, and it's not going to be that easy for the international player to come and take over the market, as you implied.
Rom, so we heard two things. We heard we know the customer better. We heard we're necessary for partnerships. We heard we know telcos. You're an international player. Telco will partner with anybody. You have your money can spread on content that has a global market rather than just worrying about only one market. And basically, I would say you don't care who's the local
Karim,
players
are you answering the question or he has to answer?
I want to set him up to
confirm.
fight with you. It's a technique.
Okay.
Let's see if it works. You're being too nice to each other. Roman, you're here. Are you going to win or is he going to win?
Oh, I think like the winner would be the regional players, and I consider honestly Yanga Play as a regional player because for all the platforms,
That's a good answer.
No, but for all the platforms that operate globally, for them, Middle East maybe, just like yet another region that they just, source revenues and so on. So they don't, I'm sure they care, but like not to a certain extent that we do, because, for us, this is the region. Like we launch here, like this is like the place that we care much more.
So you're going to win,
full
but you
disclosure,
change,
it's going to be very hard.
He
It's gonna be
identifies
very
as a regional player now, so he destroyed my question.
But it's going to be very hard, Karim. It's not, only optimist survives. Only optimists can talk about the future and build regardless. But it's going to be very hard to prove, to get to a point whereby we win, right? Is it easy? Definitely not. Is there enough room? Yes. Are we competing just with the international players? I honestly think we're mostly competing with piracy that's all over the place right now, and we have a lot of room to grow.
Yeah, I completely agree.
I would like to add, we have to also be mindful that these gigantic organizations, they also have troubles of their own. They can spend, they can impress, but the game is to sustain. There is a news, I think, last month about, I think it was Netflix and Amazon and another player, and Apple, I think, is aligned against Warner Brothers, Disney, stuff like that, because nobody will allow one player to overgrow. So these players will always need secondary markets, and markets they don't understand. It's difficult for them to reach, and that's why you find them opening regional offices everywhere. But if they don't partner with someone strong on the ground, it may not work. And also, telecom operators are the devil in the house. They will not just agree with
Don't
you.
quote him on that in the Broadcast Pro article. Okay?
That's you wanted a fight?
Yeah, because also they will not agree on a normal rate. They will have like a very, very substantial bundled rate. So that poses other challenges.
Yeah.
If I may just add one thing, I think we're all talking about distribution here, and I think that the main story really is about content, not distribution. I know, Ili, I know your product, excellent product, and I know that it's only going to get better. If you don't have the content that sits on that distribution platform, you're not going to get eyeballs. The Arabic content produced globally is at around, 1 point something percent. Very, very little content is being produced in Arabic. Majority of it is not great content, if I may say so. The industry and the whole ecosystem needs to be developed, from script writers to producers to sound engineers to post-production.
To singers, to lyricists, to everything.
All that ecosystem needs to exist prior to us saying whether our distribution platform is going to work or not. So that's
this
really
panel
a main
has exceeded my expectations. We now have telcos as devils, and Arabic content is not good enough. Good. Keep it going, guys.
Karim, 0.8% of our current content is in Arabic. In Anghami, 0.8%. But yeah, close to 50%, but basically people listen to the same thing then. that says the problem that he just mentioned right now.
Well,
We
if
need
we
to
want to
have-
look at it optimistically, at least that means there's room.
Yeah,
there's
of
room
course,
for
Basil
growth.
is
There's
right,
room-
definitely.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. All right. This one's for Basil and Muhammad, but the audience first. So we look at places like the UK. The public service broadcasters all got together and launched a common platform. We look at the US. They're buying each other and consolidating all the time. But in the Middle East, we're never going to have consolidation. Agree? Disagree? Looking at my smartphone. All right. We have UAE ecosystem and Saudi ecosystem. Are we going to consolidate and get bigger companies, or
Was
are we
that
going to
part
keep
of the
going on our
Q&A?
own?
Was that part of the Q&A? Okay. No, I feel, especially GCC countries, they have high level of potentials going forward. I don't think they are driven as of today by the need to consolidate. However, for sure, they have a need to partner because the level of
How would they partner?
you will not be able to you don't want to sell most of your content or IPs. You want to own them and keep them close to yourself for many reasons, because you feel you want to control the audience that you have a direct affinity and control to. However, if you do it by yourself, you will not be able to influence and impact. So that's why you might find, take us as an example. We were in Cannes a few weeks ago. We signed with the Emmy Awards, in which we are bringing Academy Day to Dubai. We are hosting a judging session for the awards in Dubai. So you need a player like us to activate the ecosystem rather than competing. Our assets are not for sale, but we will be playing a vital role in activating the creative industry and adding value to everyone around us.
Okay. Basil, you're not a public service company. Doesn't it make sense to consolidate, cut costs, increase revenue?
Yeah, no, so first of all, I'm talking on behalf of SRMG specifically, right? So at SRMG, acquisitions, taking over other companies, is definitely one of the strategies that we pursue.
Yeah.
But it has to make sense. So for example, when we went into and acquired 51% with Thamania, in the past 3 years, it became the largest Arabic podcast globally, right? And that's a mutually beneficial acquisition that happened that benefited both parties. So when we look at acquisitions, we look at acquisitions that's going to add to SRMG, but also add to the acquired company. And we have a long list of targets that we can look at. Some of them are going to work, some of them are not. But it's not
Smaller ones though, not the big mega
there's
merger.
varying sizes, but it's not in the way that you think is are we going to merge and take over kind of, the whole thing. No, you need to have that diversification of the market. You need to have that healthy competition. However, strategic acquisitions is always a card that you play.
All right.
Let me also add on this. I think especially when it comes to the content production, there will be so many, co-productions and collaborations, because even the streaming started with, opposing to cinemas, to TV channels, where we end up, being best partners. Now we have cinema window, streaming, TV, so we all work together and we're happy to work together. So on the content side,
Roman, every time I do this panel, everyone on the panel says exactly this. They all say, we all just want to work together. But in the real world, the audience does not multiply.
But in our case, we merged, right? I mean, in our case,
He didn't tell me last time.
Yeah.
All right, audience, your turn. So, long-form content will be less relevant as time goes by. Yes? No? They woke up. The smartphones aren't that interesting anymore. So we have a belief in long-form content. Anyone objecting to that on the panel? Oh, sorry. Yeah.
No, please.
No, we have a live example again in Thamania where we have episodes that approach 4.5 hours, getting the highest views. More views than our 30-second clips on
Are the
TikTok,
views
so
worth more to you, profitability-wise,
100.
than a view of a series?
Depends on what you're doing in the model. There are sometimes yes, sometimes no. It depends on what strategy of monetization you're implementing, which is different from one platform to the other.
Do you have any insights from your data or from research whether, because every time we look at what young people are looking at versus what older people are looking at, it's always like, the obvious thing. The younger ones are all on the short forms and the TikToks and whatever, and the older ones are not, or less so. When the younger ones grow up, will it look different? Do you have any data to to back with you one way or another?
I don't have data to back what will happen in the future, clearly. I have data to see what will happening today. I mean, people do prefer to watch, short series than watch very long series. People would prefer to watch an episode at one point in time and 40 minutes and then come back later to another 40 minutes, then watch a 2-hour movie. Obviously, I like the Tamania episode and I like Acquired, the latest one of Meta was 6 hours podcast, but this is extremely niche. But when we're talking about the big, percentage of people or the big majority of people, I do think because I have kids, they're growing up and watching small bouts of content and connecting also on music. Music has shifted. That it used to be, I grew up on, songs that are 6-7 minutes. Now music is around 2 minutes. The average song is around 2 minutes. And the same thing are happening on the video side of things. Based on the data points that I have, I definitely foresee much more on short, much less on longer. But then again, the future will need time to say.
I think the short form will, and obviously from the time spent perspective, it's getting more and more and more in the younger audiences. But I think it will just change the way how the long form content is being produced. So even like the editing, so the first episodes, the way how you start to be engaged with the story would be affected by the short form content, whereas, like you need to capture attention from the first second, so you don't have room to.
Roman, do you think we're gonna get, because there was this experiment on TikTok, somebody took a movie and chopped it up into many small 20-second or 30-second. Is this the future?
No, I don't think so, to be honest.
Thank God.
No,
I hope not.
But that's good. That's a good marketing way whereby you get a clip to go viral, then you go back to the content. That's it.
Okay. All right, audience, back to you. News. TikTok is the new BBC. Yes? Very strong views in this audience. No? All right. Who wants to chime in on this one?
I'll add a little bit. So what we see is that whenever there's a crisis, we see everyone turning back to media, traditional publishers, let's call them. And if whenever one wants the actual, properly researched resource, they always go back to the platforms that they know, that they can trust the process for. So that's why I think it'll never turn back. And we see it always. As soon as there's some kind of crisis, we see massive spikes in all our TV channels as well as our publications. And I wish that this...
But I just want to challenge this a bit, given the mess that we're in right now, without getting into the politics. There's a lot of sudden new voices that are not credible news organizations, that are people on the ground with smartphones. One of them won an Emmy. You still think people want to come back in the same way to the trusted brand, that we're not going to build a new trusted brand that's actually an individual or a group of people?
I'm not at all saying that. I'm saying that there's definitely a space for those people. What I'm saying is that I can see in my data that I have a certain steady state viewership or readership, and at a time of crisis, that is 4 or 5 times X, which means that people ultimately still go back to that trusted source for their trusted news and information. And I wish that that would trickle down in the general advertising strategies of some of the clients, because usually we don't see that except in crises. And that's not reflective. If we had that reflective in the general kind of sentiment advertising strategies, I think we can do a lot better as publishers as well as
They don't want to be next to the bad news, that's the problem.
Not necessarily news. You can have multiple.
Yes, I see at the news side, the trust of the brand is always important for authenticity and credibility of the source. But when it comes to the entertainment or the entertainment part of it, how people like to consume it is, yes, maybe 50% of people who are on TikTok are between the age of 18 to 24. So you want to reach demographics that potentially you could not have reached with your classical approaches. So that puts pressure on us to be creative, how to deliver our content to the audience, whether we do user generated content or we produce it.
Okay. Yeah, maybe if this room had more 18 to 24-year-olds, we would have a different answer. What? All right. So, next one. Data. We talk a lot about data. If you give me data, I know exactly what everybody wants. I can create hits. Data does not guarantee content success. Yes? No. I don't care about data. All right. You two are data-driven organizations by birth. They're adjusting to being data. What's your take?
We've been, I'm an engineer by nature, so I definitely trust data, and I look at data, and I try to be mindful of data when building. And we've had a lot of algorithms built to actually predict if a song will grow and become a successful song as of ingestion. So we actually push it and discover it, get people to discover it. And we're trying to do the same thing on video. But honestly, despite us knowing that, like say, some drama is extremely big in Saudi like horror movies, horror series, whatever, and that we can project, what might work over there, but the content is extremely different. When Bassel was mentioning is like, it's everything is around the content. The audience tells us something, but the way that the content might be localized, what we've noticed, for instance, if a content is dubbed in Arabic, it actually reaches certain audiences very differently. So it's not just about the content per se, but how the content is actually, reaches users. Are we delivering it on TikTok, for instance, as just an example? Are we delivering it on the right audience? You have a content, okay, but are you distributing it, going again to Bassel, distributing it in a way to reach the audience intended? So just content doesn't guarantee anything. What you make of the content and how it's actually created.
Agreed.
Becomes much harder.
Agreed, but let's go back to the data point, because we have the biggest example, which is Netflix, probably the company that has the most amount of data on its subscribers and has had it for the longest time. Their failure rate is just the same as any other. But
still they experiment.
Yes.
I think, honestly, like you will not find anyone more addicted to data than, young overall as a culture, and like me personally, so like I sometimes like meditate, going through the data, but I think the beauty of our industry and like actual blessing is that there is still this room of magic when it comes to the content, movies, series, that somehow there is some spark in the story, in the movie or in the series that touches you, and still there aren't yet the way to like crack this code, so there is room for the storytelling. But again, from the data, it's like something that allows you to just do it more efficiently. And at some point, whenever you like become addicted to finding answers to your questions, just like getting them from the data, like who should be casted for this series, like what's the genre should be mentioned, especially when it comes to the marketing. The marketing is so well tested against the data, so it just makes you more efficient. But still, there is this room for magic when it comes to the content.
I think what we forget sometimes is that the consumers are not the same, and the same piece of content in the different setting 5 years ago versus 5 years ahead actually will perform differently as well. Next one. Gen AI is a fad. Yes. No. Not sure yet. That's a serious question. Okay. Gen AI is a fad. Anyone thinks yes on the panel?
No.
Don't know.
That's an easy answer, but no, it's how it's used.
Yeah, how.
The whole point is how it's used. Let's take the example that just Roman mentioned in terms of storyline and all of that. Gen AI could actually understand the storyline. I mean, Gen AI could understand the story and, give it to me. I mean, rewrite it, not rewrite it. I mean, dub it directly in a different language. We can get stuff from, there's a lot of Turkish content being created and they Arabize them. We can have Gen AI Arabize that easily, right? And you would end up having Gen AI Arabized in Saudi or Arabized in, Syrian or whatever, Lebanese. That is something that would take a lot of time, a lot of resources that we could use it. But also Gen AI could understand storyline and understand what the user is actually doing when it skips. We've noticed in one series that we had that a lot of people were actually skipping at a certain point in time. And then eventually, because of the data, we looked it up, we understood what was getting skipped. That thing we could have prevented earlier on if you have actually watched that movie. So Gen AI could allow you to actually watch the movie on its own, detect inconsistencies or whatever incoherences or inaptitude versus the local market by actually feeding him the right questions. So I do believe right now a lot of it is being used to create stuff on ChatGPT and all of that. That's great. But when you take it and apply it to our actual industry, what can we do that actually would have taken many hours of extra work, hours of people, and try to apply it? I give you some examples. We have a lot more that they're actually working on, and eventually, hopefully next year, we'll talk about more. But the idea is whatever you can think of, we have to think deeper, and you have to create something that would be very much tailored to our industry. I genuinely think that having much more interns, because you have to validate the output of those interns, called Gen AI, is actually something that everybody, as a CEO or not, should experiment with and get the benefit out from. It's not settled, but there is clearly stuff right now we know for a fact that Gen AI is helping us create summaries of actual shows, so we can have better summaries adapted for the users. A lot of that will happen more and more in the future.
Okay, so today we're talking about it as a tool for efficiency, for better analytics, for optimization. If ChatGPT 10 or Runway version 15, are they going to write the whole and produce the whole thing on their own?
I mean, for a fact it's going to be yes. Unfortunately, maybe it's
yes,
different.
You agree?
I agree, yeah. And I mean, even the examples that we have right now, produced, yes, with the editing, with still some touch of, humans behind it, but still is, you can see the future, how it might become fully
So
produced.
all these people in the room, what will they be doing in 10 years' time?
If I may, so I've actually tried it myself to kind of test that, whether can it really replace or not. And what I've found is that while it did give me proper answers, full answers, really wide, I kept trying to navigate it towards a specific answer, being a subject matter in that topic I was searching, right? So you still need to have that human kind of touch. However, this is today, and I'm sure that down the line that's gonna go away. But in terms of use cases, it is already integrated into newsrooms today. Translations, dubbing, even day-to-day tasks of research, summary, etc.
Yeah, I think sometimes you
It's
don't
already
even
included.
mention that you're using actually something based on AI. You just use it and think of it as like, yeah, I can just search something on the photos, and it's just not image recognition, super complicated technology, just search.
I mean, the whole concept of AI will become just pure tech. We won't know when AI starts, when AI ends, because it's going to be melted in everything that we do.
But it also sounds like we won't be there doing anything.
No, we will. We'll be doing. We'll doing more creatives. I mean, the same thing
we
that
can't all
people
be doing more creative stuff, though.
I mean, there were horses at one point in time. People were driving horses, and then we got to cars and see where we are right now. It's the same thing. At that time, the horses said what we will do. The people who drive horses were saying what we will do. We will create. I mean, human ambition that is unlimited. The more I know that I can do much more things because I have my own minion AI interns working on that, I'll have the ability to create more. I won't just, or I can go to the beach even more. Either way, that's amazing.
Hamad, you were going to say something?
Again, generally it's about value generation. If you take onto the field of sport, what they have recently applied, you have machine learning, and then you have the computer vision, and then what they do, they map the whole game, and then after you get live highlights, equally you might get a personalized performance about each athlete on the ground. So it's as good as the programmer. He should know what he wants as an end. And I mean, the human, these old jobs evolve. We have evolved for thousands of years. We remain the center of what we create. And we will evolve, of course, all of us.
We will evolve. The issue is that the people who come out are not the same people who went in. So that we have to deal with as a society. Okay, one sentence or few words. Let's go back as you're seated. What's going to guide your strategy in the next 3, 4, 5 years? One sentence.
Yeah, I think it's going to be the most exciting years, and we're so lucky, to play all together this game. I mean, it's not a competition. I think it's a very nice game that we're all playing, and younger play loves to play, as you might expect. So we're thrilled to expect what's more, technologies, content, stuff will come in the next years, and be part of it.
Okay, Eli?
keep listening to the customer, keep building, keep innovating, keep showing that we can build something very innovative from the region, and keep getting the right content across movies and videos to grow as the biggest entertainment platform in the region.
I don't believe that we should continue to be in the consumption market. Our market, it's about time to go international and take our stories abroad.
With SRMG, with our foundations now laid clearly and solidly after 5 years into the first strategy that we did, the next 5 years you'll see a lot of diversification and a lot of growth.
Excellent. Please put your hands together for an amazing panel. Thank you to all my panelists. You've been great.
Thank you, sir.